welcome to County Board Wrap-Up. I'm Kara O'Donnell, your host for our monthly look into the important decisions that the County Board took at its latest meeting. This month, we're going to talk about the recent election, the 2018 budget, affordable housing loan for Culpepper Gardens, infrastructure work on Columbia Pike, and much more. It's a busy episode. Joining us as always, we have County Board Chair Libby Garvey, and with her today is Board Member Katie Cristol. Thank you both for being here, as always.
As always, it's always a pleasure.
Thanks, Kara. It's a pleasure.
So let's start off, of course, the thing that's on everybody's mind was the presidential election. And you made the decision to speak about this at the recent county board meeting.
We did, which was the day after. So things, I think we were all pretty surprised.
Fresh,
yeah.
yes.
And actually, I'll just say the election, I did get reelected, and I'd like to thank everybody who voted for me. And those who didn't, I'm going to serve you too. But it was, so that was nice. But we did have this presidential election, and I don't think any of us here want to try attempt an analysis of the election. But what we did see was the concern from, our particular immigrant population, vulnerable populations here. And we've been through this before with 9/11, and there have been some other instances, and each time we've adopted a resolution, we've reaffirmed it, simply expressing that, we are a welcoming community, we're a diverse community, we value everybody in our community, and people can feel safe here. And that was sort of the part of the reason for doing the statements. And I'll let Katie talk a little bit, because she was the one who really made it saying, I think we need to do a statement, and sort of got us pushing on that. And I think it was a good thing. Katie?
Absolutely. So I think this board may have not commented on a standard partisan election, but this was not a standard partisan election. There are great many members of our community who are uncertain and concerned about the precedent that might be set with the new administration coming forward and what it might mean for their lives. And so I think we as board members felt a particular obligation to protect those members in our community and to signal strong leadership that we will continue to stand with them and protect with them and have their back. So as Libby alluded, this is really no more than an affirmation of standing policies of the county board. As recently as this spring, actually, our board unanimously issued a statement reaffirming that in our community, a person's right to file a police report, their right to participate in police and community activities, their right to otherwise benefit from police services is in no way contingent on their immigration status, that our police...
and questions will not be asked.
You got it, exactly right. And similarly, that citizens in our community are welcome to participate in our schools, our parks, our libraries, our other public spaces, irrespective of their immigration status. And so, given the questions and concern in our community, it seemed like a particular time to reaffirm them and that commitment. But as Libby said, this community has endured a lot, has been through a lot. Our principles of sound planning, our engaged community members, and I think our values have stood us well through times of challenge in the past, and I have faith they will do so in the years ahead.
Yeah, and actually most communities, I'd just like to talk a little bit about why we do this. I mean, there's the political part. It's actually public safety, because communities where people are afraid to come forward are communities that are less safe. We want everybody in this community to feel comfortable, coming to our police if they need to, if they see something going on, not feeling that if they see something they can't say anything because they'll get in trouble, possibly, or maybe some of their friends will, or they don't know what's going on, they don't know. And that really affects all of us, and that's one of the important reasons to do this kind of affirming. It's really a public safety statement. So, and I think, for many of us, it's personal. I have a son-in-law who is Ecuadorian, and he's on a path to citizenship. He's not a citizen right now. He graduated from T.C. Williams. I mean, he's an American. And yet I think a lot of people are feeling this threat, and they're wonderful members of our community, and we want to make sure that they understand that we appreciate them and they're part of our community, and we're going to continue on as best we can, as we have before, which as Katie described. We're a wonderful, welcoming community, and that's what our economy is based on.
And we're a very resilient community.
We are a very resilient community.
Have you heard concerns from Arlingtonians after the election? Is it something that was specifically brought to you?
Absolutely. I think the nature of being the kind of community that is so inclusive and diverse means that you encounter people from all walks of life. And I will tell you, there is great concern among members of our New American community, among members of our Muslim American community, and quite a few comments that I've heard from members of our LGBT community who are very concerned about not only what their rights might look like under the new administration, but the significant uptick in violence that we're seeing happening nationally. And I think it's more important than ever for all of us as allies to our neighbors and to different groups to take a strong stand, not only in our policies, which I know the board really did reaffirm, but also in our attitudes and what we find acceptable and won't find acceptable. I know we've been talking amongst ourselves that it's been a pleasure to see our school community and our students stand up to some of the hate language, graffiti, et cetera, and really reaffirm, again, not just through policy, but through our positions and the way we interact with each other, that the members of our community who are concerned will continue to be welcomed here.
Yeah, and I'll just, one quick personal thing just for myself, I've taken to wear a safety pin. Because in England, after Brexit, there were a lot of attacks on immigrants, and people started wearing safety pins to show they were a safe person. It's a personal statement for me, but it's just something that I think we all can do to make sure that everybody understands that they're safe with us.
Okay. Moving on to another hot topic at the most recent meeting, of course, the budget. Now, we talked a lot about the process behind this.
But that's the major thing we do,
that's
right?
True. At the last meeting. But the big thing that's new is putting out that the draft guidances ahead of time. And then you got some feedback. So what did you hear from residents through that feedback?
Yeah, one, that they liked it. And, you know, it was interesting. I think we had different interest groups, which are, there's certain interest groups that are used to, at the budget closeout. Maybe I need to talk a little bit about close it. It's kind of wrapped up with guidance. But people are used to a way of doing things, and they'll come in and lobby and think and get money, either guidance in the budget that the manager, even before he's formed his budget, has to give money to X, Y, or Z, or in the carryover, which we may talk about a little bit when there's some extra funds from the year. They always have some money left over that people want to use those funds for X, Y, or Z. And I think what we've really committed to do is, as much as possible, put it into the overall budget process. I call it off budget spending. It's not exactly that, but if you set up ahead of time without going through the whole process who's getting certain amounts of money, they haven't gone through the whole process along with everybody else and all of the other needs that we've got. And we're in difficult times with schools and Metro and some needs. We don't really know what we've got. So, you know, the manager set aside some things. And I'd be interested in how Katie thought it went. I mean, this is your, you know, you've only done it twice, but this was one try. So what do you think?
Absolutely. So I think a lot of credit goes to our manager, to our operational and departmental staff. For their efforts to bring us a pretty low pool of carryover dollars this year. You know, I think it's notable that operational departmental savings, which is to say their carryover dollars, are really at a low.
It's 1%, I think.
Yeah, so they're, you know, down. Operational funds carryover funds were down to $6.4 million this year, relative to a high of almost $19 million just 3 years ago. Right. And what that indicates to me is that we have a staff that really is working to come in to ask for the funds they will use and to use the funds they will ask for. And so I think there are a lot of good staff decisions and planning underway, and I think residents can feel confident that they have a good county government that is determined to be you know, fiscally conservative and good stewards, so that we're not, on the one hand, coming in with very large surpluses, but we're not, on the other, obviously overspending, which is potentially even of greater concern. So you know, I would give kudos certainly to the new county manager and to our staff for coming to us with a pretty circumscribed set of dollars. But you know, I think that I was really pleased to be part of a conversation this year with respect to carryover that really had clear standards for what we were using those funds for. So that, as Libby said, to the extent things could be discretionary and decided in fiscal year 18, they will be decided as part of the fiscal year 18 process. We voted on a couple of allocations, things that needed to be done in the balance of the FY17 year. So, for example, ensuring that there is a fund to cover emergencies for snow by the time we get to July 2018.
And we are predicting more snow, apparently. So we'll see where we go.
Exactly. So that was a pleasure, and to be part of that process, I think it was again a set of good decisions that we were able to ultimately weigh in on. With respect to the community engagement piece, I think it's great when we put things out for comment, we get comments, and we really appreciate that. And I think you know, what we heard showed up particularly in our guidance for FY18. You know, of the comments we received, we got more than 4 times as many comments as the next item in support of affordable housing, either maintaining the allocation to where it's been or 53 comments in support of increasing it. And you could see that we included then in our budget guidance that it clarified expectations that we wanted the manager's FY18 budget to include a maintenance of effort for AHIF and housing grants. So, again, not allocating a particular amount, but really reflecting in the guidance that we adopted what we heard in the comments that we received.
And I think one of the important things is that people, when they can make comments, they then look at the process, and I think they understand better what we're doing when they're involved in it. And I think that's really important. One last pitch, just anybody, $6 million left was actually really small. And if people think of their own bank accounts, you never want to get down to zero because you're in big trouble. So we do want to have some left over, and I think the manager's done a great job.
Well, great. And then you'll vote on the budget officially in April, correct? And
we're going to be talking about and working on the budget for a lot of
time before then, but
lots
so
of
this
budget
will be
discussion.
An ongoing discussion.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about the board's decision to, speaking of affordable housing, lend money to renovate Culpepper Garden apartment complex, which has housed low-income seniors since the 70s. Stay with us. We're back with County Board Wrap-Up, our monthly chat with the chair and other board members where we explore some of the key decisions that the board makes at its monthly meetings. With me today is Chair Libby Garvey and board member Katie Cristol. Thank you both once again. Let's talk, Katie, you mentioned in the last segment about some affordable housing and the priority that takes. Let's talk about Culpepper Gardens. Now that's been a complex that was overdue for some renovations, and we made the decision to do that.
Indeed we did. We will be supporting them in their renovation of their units, which serve very low-income seniors in our community. Of their 3 buildings, this is Culpepper Garden 1, the oldest and most overdue for some renovations.
Since 1975, I think.
Yeah,
it's a long time. Yeah.
So, this is a group of folks for whom the average income is, what, about $18,000 a year? It's folks who really would be very challenged to find housing in the private market in Arlington County. And Culpepper Garden has been a wonderful fixture that offers not only housing that is affordable to our seniors, but a sense of community, wonderful programming. I know visits to Culpepper Garden have been a cherished tradition for many of our younger Arlingtonians and school communities. And it was a real pleasure to support them as they, financially, as they develop and now execute on a pretty sophisticated finance plan and a pretty sophisticated plan to renovate while keeping all the seniors in their homes.
Exactly. No, it's great. And these are people, I mean, they're Arlingtonians. They're us. They're our community. We need to support them.
Giving them the opportunity to age in
place.
Yes,
in our or at least in the community that they help build, and also it financially can make sense. Some of those folks might be on the street or needing other services, and that costs money. That can cost more than actually investing in having people housed comfortably, and it's really totally the right thing to do. Community can be judged by how it takes care of its more vulnerable citizens, including its older people who've done so much to make the community that we've got today.
Now, this all comes through the Arlington Affordable Housing Investment Fund, correct? Can you explain a little bit just kind of how that works and how that works into the budget?
Sure, yeah, and that'll be a topic as we deliberate on in the FY18 budget as well. Our Affordable Housing Investment Fund is a revolving loan fund, so the money that Culpepper Garden takes out of that fund or anyone else will eventually be paid back.
Because they get paid rents. In fact, they pay us. It just keeps going
That's
around.
Exactly right, and so that's what's, I think, very exciting about the AHIF as a policy tool, that it is far more sustainable and allows us to leverage grants and benefits from the private market, from the state, and from other sources, which will certainly be the case in Culpepper Garden as you look at their plan of finance. AHIF is just one part of it.
Right. Yeah, and when we say leverage, we put in some and then they put in money, which if we didn't put in any, we wouldn't have that. So then where would we be?
Yeah, and so money does come from some allocation from the county in our operating and ongoing budget, and it also comes from repayment from those who have taken out loans, and it also comes as a feature of our affordable housing housing ordinance, developers will sometimes, in exchange for additional density in market rate projects, will either designate a certain number of units on site as affordable, or they will make a contribution to the AHIF. So that's another source of funds that we can then turn around and loan to terrific projects like Culpepper Gardens.
I was at a regional meeting about a year ago now, and they were talking about it, and we're one of the few areas that has this kind of a revolving loan. Everybody was jealous because it's just, this is a, it's a hard nut to crack. Everybody's facing it, and this is one of the best ways we can do it. And of course, you build it up over time because we keep pouring money, so the revolving fund keeps replenishing itself, but it also keeps getting bigger. And it's good we started it a long time ago because we need it.
That'll be some nice improvements for the residents.
Oh, yeah, and very needed. Buildings
yes.
eventually, it's like leaking, and it needs work. Otherwise, it's not going to be there.
Well, going from renovations of a building to a community of sorts, there were a lot of decisions made with regards to Columbia Pike.
Yeah, street renovations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, when some of this infrastructure work may not seem as, interesting to some as others, it's not as forward-facing, Shelley, but it's very important to the fiber of the community.
Yeah,
correct?
let's talk first about the stops, I think, and I was going to invite Katie to talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely.
We've really done quite a bit. We finally, it took us a while to do this, didn't it? Yeah. But I think we're in a good place.
Indeed, yeah. So we have new transit stations coming to Columbia Pike, which is very exciting and part of what we have talked multiple times about as a kind of premium transportation network for Columbia Pike. And the mechanics of these stations, folks can visit our pages on the county webpage to see a little bit what they'll look like, some of the potential designs. But those are all the mechanics. The vision that we're trying to achieve here is to make transit more effective for those living and working along Columbia Pike, so that more of us, I live along the Pike myself, can opt for transit. And that's really going to be key to the sustainable redevelopment of the corridor. So you will see, not only more placemaking, which means to say stops that are designed to really contribute more to a sense of identity along the Pike.
They're interesting. You might want to get off the bus and see what's going on there.
Exactly. Stop for a minute. And it also creates a lot of enhancements for those who ride the bus. They will have real-time information, for example, about when you might expect the next bus. There will be opportunities for level boarding, getting onto the bus.
Wheelchairs, strollers. Yeah.
Exactly. As well as off-vehicle fare collection opportunities. So it's very exciting to see these materialize. Part of the delay, our staff was exploring a different procurement option and a series of different procurement options, which will probably a little too weedy for the purposes of this conversation, but the upshot is that they have found sort of a third way in terms of procurement that they believe can help us get to a beautiful, striking custom design, but
not really custom at custom prices.
Well,
it's
to
modular
do so
kind of,
more in a price-conscious way, which I think is something we can all get behind as we realize this vision of a transit-oriented Columbia Pike. And
making sure that they keep you dry in the rain as much. They actually provide some
Always
shelter, which
thing.
is
Yes.
a good thing. That was a good thing. And then the stuff that's really not in some ways so interesting but can make a tremendous difference, is things like undergrounding, continuing to underground the wires and electrical wires and all of that, and then making just improvements to sidewalks and curb cuts and things, just to make it a pleasanter experience and a safer experience for pedestrians as well. And all of that adds up to attracting more people to the Pike. I think soon we're going to have somebody in Arlington Mill. I'm hoping soon that's going to happen. Okay. And I think we're off and running. But these things take time, and I know people can get frustrated sometimes. But we're on it. We're working on it.
Well, on the transit stations, we're looking 2021 or so for that to be completed, right?
In fiscal year 21.
Fiscal year 2021.
But I think we'll start. The goal is to sequence construction of some of these sites to the multimodal issues or the multimodal projects that Libby mentioned, or to private development. There will be a station at the top of my street, for example, that will be sequenced to, we hope, potentially to the redevelopment of what's now Rappahannock Coffee, which is another major project happening at the East End.
And a quick thing to mention why it's so important to do all of this together. I mean, people talk, the bus stops are still, they're expensive, the transit stops are still expensive, but a lot of the cost is what goes on underneath, underground. And while we're undergrounding things, we build at the same time, it makes tremendous sense to do. But a lot of the cost, it looks nice up on top, but there's a lot going on under the street.
Right. And overall, just to kind of wrap that up, this is all part of kind of that creating that Main Street vibe, correct, for Columbia Pike, making it just a little more hometown-friendly type of community, a place that really is going to attract not only residents and employees, commuters, but also visitors as well.
Right, and have it function better even yet as a transit corridor, which is an extremely important transit corridor.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you. We're going to take another quick break right now. But when we come back, we're going to talk with Libby and Katie about the new financial fraud, waste, and abuse hotline for the county. And remember, you can watch all county board meetings live right here on ATV, as well as live or on demand at the county's website at arlingtonva.us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our final segment of this month's County Board Wrap-Up, our monthly chat with the board about the actions taken at county board meetings. Now, this month, we instituted a new, well, it's not new for within the county, but it went public with the Financial Fraud, Waste, and Abuse Hotline. Let's talk a little bit about this hotline, what it is, what the public can expect.
Sure. Well, it's just, you know, if folks are concerned about something, they now have a channel to call it in. And I think it's just one of the sort of best practices. So we've had it for our employees for some time, and now we're instituting it for the public. And really, that's what most jurisdictions do. And it's not that we're expecting to find anything or, you know, particularly concerned. It's just with a large organization, this is kind of a best practice, and that's what we're doing. And that includes actually we've hired an auditor. You know, our first auditor got an offer she could not refuse in California, where she's from, so she did not stay here. But we've hired Dr. Chris Horton, and he'll be our the county board auditor and help with the sort of. It's just, again, all of these things are best practices. Not that we're expecting to find anything, but it's important to have these kind of things in place, and structures in place. To
be clear, this was not implemented as a result of any huge problem we found within the county.
No, it was just, in talking to people and just a sense, as I say, you just have to look every now and then at how you're doing your work and what are the best practices, and it was pretty clear this was something that most places are doing, and it seemed like a good idea, so we're doing it too now.
Good. And if someone would like to report something, they can do so now online, via phone, or multiple ways.
Right. You can go online, and there's a number which I can read here. I think 866-565-9206. I don't know if we can put that up on the screen along with the website. And there's a way to report anonymously if you'd like. You don't have to leave your name if you're nervous about doing that. And the same thing particularly is true for our employees and has been for a long time, because it's understandable. Employees could feel uncomfortable, but we've not been hearing a lot, and I don't anticipate that we will. But in case somebody sees something or is concerned, there's now a way to let us know.
And we're having everything is being run through a third party.
They are. Yeah, it is.
Everything above board on that. Well, moving this from hotlines to a little bit of history, we have some issues in Ballston about creating a new local historic district. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, we have an issue coming up where there's the Ball family, of course, helped found Arlington County. Ballston is named for that, right? And there is a church that's redeveloping, and it's in Ballston, and there's still a little section. It's the graveyard. I mean, there's a gravestone there that, you know, from Mr. Ball Sr., who was born in 1776. What a classic date. And suddenly we find a little bit of, you know, which is what happens, a little bit of conflict. We want to do some redevelopment and affordable housing, which is important, as we've talked about. But there's a cemetery there, and there's a desire to preserve the cemetery. I think we're going to come out with a good solution in the end. There was a lot of discussion about it, but I think it's going to work out well. Katie, what did you see?
Indeed, yeah. So we have a lot of interests in this small area, which often seems to be the case in our rather small 26.2 square miles. So as Libby mentioned, this is an historic family, of course, an historic set of headstones, and potentially human remains as well. And so the goal ahead of all of us is balancing that historic interest and balancing the interests of many community members that will be served by this project, which is truly an exciting program that the United Methodist Church, the Central United Methodist Church has proposed, which includes not only affordable housing, but committed affordable child care, as well as a soup kitchen and community services function to be run in partnership with ACE Band. So there are a lot of interest and a lot of really wonderful things set to be achieved with this project. What makes me optimistic is just how committed the many partners at play here are to making this all work. Not only our staff in terms of the design, but the applicant, the church themselves, as well as our Historic Landmark and Review Board, which is really sought to kind of circumscribe the area that they're proposing for designation such that it hopefully will not affect the program. The board's action was to advertise the hearings, but the decision we all made at the dais was that we would advertise those hearings such that they are held concurrent to or at the same time as the site plan for the proposed redevelopment. So what that will allow us as board members and as community members to really evaluate is how these different uses and values can coexist and how that can come to life in the design of the building.
Yeah, how you can design it all. And I just want, Christian Dorsey brought up a very good point as we were talking. I said, so might some other people be buried there too? Because what they saw, you know, was there some other bodies, probably human remains there, which may have been slaves. You know, and enslaved people of that time, and they deserve to be remembered as well. And I think we all just kind of came more committed to working on our history here in Arlington, presenting it well, and preserving what we can. And I think we're on a good path because we need to do more, actually. A lot of people are just totally unaware this cemetery existed. So
yeah, I mean, it's relatively small.
It's relatively small,
but the size of a hotel room.
Right, right. But it's kind of cool to know what was there before, and of course, important to remember everybody that helped contribute to this community.
Of course. And well, moving from talking tradition and remembering our heritage and moving into, we're trying something new this year.
A little bit. Actually, it's next year.
For the beginning of next year
yeah.
with the traditional start of the year meeting.
Yeah, we have traditionally, and it's been going on since I think the 50s, we meet on New Year's Day as our organizational meeting. And I'm going into 21 years in the elected office, and I you know, have long felt that this was not so good for the community. I think there are people that would like to be home with their families, and I think people are torn. So this year, and traditionally we do this when it falls on a Sunday, which is it does this year. New Year's Day falls on a Sunday, then we don't meet. And because it comes from the 50s, which is a time when everybody went to church on Sundays. I mean, there are a number of people who don't. Sunday is not a religious, but anyway, but we preserve that tradition too. And then we meet on the Monday holiday, and I thought, you know, if we're not meeting on New Year's Day anyway, let's try not doing it on New Year's Day. So we're going to meet on the 3rd. And we had a lot of discussion, and I think the board is still kind of divided on this. So we're going to try it, see how it goes. And actually, I'm kind of excited about because we're supposed to meet with the Civic Federation, and I think we're going to organize it. We're going to have our meeting with the Civic Federation right after our organizational meeting. And I think it'll really be a great community start to the year, and we'll be doing it in the board room as well. So we'll have a little reception, and then we'll meet with the Civic Federation, and I think it's going to work out. We'll see. I mean, that's why you try. Yeah.
We'll see what happens. And then before we go, Katie, you're going to be also doing something new with a live Twitter chat.
Indeed.
So tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So we're really looking forward to this. On December 1st at 6 p.m., I will be live tweeting and engaging with what I hope will be a number of good questions from our community members via Twitter about this segment, about any of the topics the three of us have discussed today, or if they have other issues on their minds as well. So I hope people will join me. I am at Katie Cristol, and I look forward to hearing questions and doing my level best to respond in a mere 140 characters.
Always a challenge.
It's going to be fun.
All right. Well, once again, we have come to the end of another important edition of County Board Wrap-Up, our monthly look at the important actions the County Board takes that affects you and your community. Libby, Katie, thank you very much for joining us. And join us again in December when we will be discussing the decisions taken at the final board meeting of 2016. Yeah. It's hard to believe we're already at the end of the year with County Board Chair Libby Garvey, who will be ending your term as chair, and perhaps a guest as well. Thanks for joining us today. And don't forget to visit the county website, arlingtonva.us, to learn more about the services, programs, and initiatives your county provides, and give us your feedback on all these issues and more. We'll see you next month. Pretty crazy on me there.